Okay, I'm testing how my voice sounded, and well, suddenly this cinematic appeared, and well, let's continue. Well, meanwhile this plays, I'm going to try to speak a little bit more softly in case you want to listen to the music or whatever, but I was searching for a visual novel. I really wanted to play one, and well, I tried to play Steins Gate, but it got kind of boring, so I decided that, well, I stopped it and didn't even upload it to YouTube, because I was like, fine. And then I came across this, and it looks really good, like the intro looks really good, so I decided that, well, maybe we should play it, you know? There was many things that I've been trying to play, for example, What I Know Horror. It was long, I didn't end up liking it that much, and so well, I don't know if I'll upload it to YouTube, but let's try with this one. Maybe I'll find something that I really like. I would have played Yumineko no Naku Koroni, but I've already watched it on YouTube, so yeah, that's no longer an option. But well, let's give this a try. I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. It just seems like a harem, you know, this guy with all the girls. It just, it's just a kind of red flag, but who knows, maybe I'll find my next passion in Chaos Child, who knows. It is possible after all. But what I do know is that the intro is taking too long. Well, I was missing here the names of the characters, but well, anyway. I mean, the main character is good looking. So, yeah. Alright. What else? Yeah, welcome to Chaos World. Wow, this is really... It's really something. Alright, so that is where everything started. Okay, press enter. Oh, now. Okay, well, new game, because we don't have anything. We don't have any game started. Okay, quick. Oh, it has quick save. Okay. It came without warning. Well, I'm going to put this person talking my voice, since I'm not very sure if he's the main character or not. But okay. Oh, so basically the whole city exploded, or what? Okay, oh, it was an earthquake, alright. So, it was a magnitude 7.8 earthquake, with an epicenter directly under the city. This disaster reduced one of Tokyo's busiest downtown areas to nothing in a single night. The high-rise buildings that had birthed so many trends and fought collapse, as if given up on their role in society. Black fires spread through the city. As individuals fell into the grip of the crowd's psychology, their terror was magnified. Combined, all these things took many lives. The final death toll was 3,851. The final number of injured, 30,927. Okay, I struggle reading numbers, alright? I swear that I'm intelligent, it's just that I'm not very good at math. This event would be later known as the Shibuya earthquake. I'm struggling to pronounce R's today. What a game. Even in all that destruction, people still suffered the most in their hearts. Some who had lost their families came together to share new resolve, while the others who'd been forced to watch their friends die were driven by guilt to take their own lives. Wow, that's pretty intense. As the baby was miraculously returned with its parents. Dude, that's rude. He's basically, you're addressing the baby like an object. He's her, there, but not its. What? Is this some kind of bad translation, or is it this that they were trying to mean? Oh, I'm not sure. Well, after 72 hours, a child in an evacuation shelter asked her dad, "When is mommy coming home?" He had no answer. Some of the wounded made it to the hospitals by looking at real-time updates on the web. Others saw people on the internet talking about the disaster as if it were a movie, and were driven mad. Ooh. A homeless man was saved from malnutrition by an organized volunteer group, but at the same time, a middle school boy punched a self-centered volunteer who'd come to Shibuya to find himself in the face. It was the first time in that boy's life he'd ever been violent. The psychological tool, so basically this tips thing is basically the same as in Steins Gate. The psychological toll was incredible, and many of the survivors would later manifest symptoms similar to those associated with PTSD. The young were hit the hardest, and before long, the causes of those symptoms was given a name: Chaos Child Syndrome. Rebuilding happened at a feverish pitch never seen before. It felt inappropriate to say, "hang in there," but some people felt that somebody had to do something. The new slogan was "Shibuya, a city reborn," and no amount of money or manpower was spared in aiding at the endeavor. The whole town was in the grip of a fever. In private, the leader of the redevelopment efforts said, "This may sound unkind, but this frenzy feels like a town burying its grief by holding a festival." Building codes were rigorously evacuated with an eye toward earthquake engineering. Perhaps in an effort to emphasize the city's safety, security cameras were put all over town. Shibuya would become a place where everyone could live in peace. But at the same time, a rumor began to spread about the earthquake. Something about this earthquake doesn't make sense. There were no aftershocks, and the damage had spread in a strange way. Harajuku and Ebisu, areas only a kilometer away from Shibuya, suffered a few casualties, and even fewer collapsed buildings. This damage pattern had never been observed in any prior earthquake, and so more than a few pundits claimed that Shibuya earthquake must have been artificial. Wow. More than anything, some survivors all said the same things. "I saw a white light. I heard a sound like a ringing in my ears." Too many people experienced this for anyone to laugh it off, but no cause of this phenomena was ever found. It was just some evidence to those who believed that something about the earthquake had been wrong. Then, 6 years after the strange earthquake, in 2015, something else was about to attract the attention in the reborn of Shibuya. What is it? Chaos Child. Oh, again an introduction? Or what? Well, the plot is very interesting. I'm really liking it. It's just like mystery. It sounds really good. Okay, Sunday night. It's exactly like the text is exactly like the one from Steins Gate. So yeah, I think this is the guy, the main character. So I'm going to put him a deeper voice. All right. Okay, I'm going to take 3 minutes from questions. Get to it. The second he spoke, the comment boxes started to fill. Yuma Otani watched it for a few seconds, and then saw the request. "When does Haru tell us she's dating somebody?" He smiled to himself. Just what he wanted. Most of the requests... Oh. Sorry, it was not the main character. Most of the requests were about hot actors or cute idols. His audience was so stupid that it was easy to tell exactly what they were going to ask. The problem was whether the name that came up was someone he knew. That was a question of luck, and how popular they were. But Haru, her full name was Haruka or something or other. She was fine. Just a few days ago, he'd forced himself to go to an event he'd rather have skipped, and seen it for himself.
Yes.
Okay. Satisfied, Otani got up to get some snacks, like he always did. He lived in a one-bedroom condo located 80 minutes from Shibuya Station. Cost 150 yen per month. It had been built after the earthquake, so the furnishing and layout were modern. A little more room would have been nice, but compared to the 4,000 yen per month place he'd lived in last year, it was heaven. Next year, maybe I'll move somewhere more convenient. Oh. Oh, he's 21 years old. At 21 years old, Otani felt satisfied for the first time in his life. In 4th grade, he's gotten big into online gaming and stopped going to school. Eventually, he stopped leaving his room altogether, so he's something like a hikikomori. Then he got addicted to drugs that made him sleepy, but did nothing else. Oh. Wow. Why? Like, why would you want that? Once seen only in darkness in his future, he'd planned to commit suicide. In the chaos after the earthquake 6 years ago, he'd finally managed to leave his room, but his family had already given up on him. After he failed his entrance exams, he went to live on his own in Shibuya, and he hadn't spoken to his parents since. As far as they knew, he'd failed exams 3 times in a row. In fact, he'd never even gone to the test at all the first time. Well, oh my god. This guy probably has depression or something like that. He should seek help. Well, there wasn't anything he wanted to learn in college or any companies he wanted to work for badly enough. Had no goal in life at all. We'll go through that phase in our lives. I mean, when you're young, even when you're 20, it's normal to doubt. What do you want to do with your future? Oh, sorry, that phrasal construction was terrible. But yeah, sometimes it's normal to wonder what to do with the future. Yeah, apparently today I don't know how to speak English, I don't know why. But yeah, everybody has gone through this. It's uncomfortable because you sometimes feel like you're useless, that you're going to disappoint everybody, you're going to disappoint your parents, and yeah, that sucks ass, really. It's really terrible. But then eventually, you just have to wait. Yeah. Life is not about passively waiting each time. You have to be active, as I always say. Yeah, like you have to be like in the mood to find something you like, and then eventually that'll come to you. And you'll find yourself in a situation in which like, wow, I helped someone this way. Maybe I want to have a job that involves helping people this or that way, you know? And maybe that is when you finally realize what you really would like to do in the future, but it's normal feeling that way. No. Well, this is like fortune. So I'm gonna say maybe fortune, that's still the truth sometimes. Guess I'll have some cheese. He took a block of cheap cheese and he bought at the supermarket out of the fridge. Usually he never ate this chip, I think it said. But on Nikonia's live stream, it wasn't just what you said. How you looked and when you said it also mattered. Otani wasn't a good-looking man, let alone cute girl. Well, he was just a plain old guy, and so kept his popular program. He needed to make them think that he was poor, barely managing to scrape by, in fact. That's why he kept the area around his PC and the parts of his apartment that you could see with his webcam completely plain. Wow, that's mean, really. Last month, he'd finally reached his goal of 4,000 viewers. For a man with nothing for him like Otani, this was extremely unusual. 3 months ago, he'd guessed that the winners of a popularity contest a certain idol club was holding, as well as their total number of votes. That must have really paid off. After that, his numbers had begun going up steadily. Late last month, when his streams had appeared at the top of Nikonia's page, he'd seen a huge increase. Right now, he'd gotten above 4... it's just struggle to pronounce them. 4,500, and it was quite possible he'd break 5,000 by the end of the month. I'm just saying, I'm not dumb. I'm not a native English speaker. It was around late last year when he started to wonder about his power. It was a certain rumor on one of 4chan's occult wards that made him start to realize what he had. The name he'd chosen for his stream subtly reflected this. Then I learned that I can't see the future. He took out a knife to cut a cheese. There was a strange sound. He thought he'd just imagine it when... Knock, knock, knock. He heard it again. It was coming from the door. Someone was clearly knocking on his door. Huh? Jungle, maybe? Suspicious, he walked toward the door to answer, then checked the clock. It was 11:41 p.m. Not exactly normal delivery hours. Oh, come on! Oh, sorry. Oh, come on, I'm streaming right now. He tried to ignore it, but... The knocking sound continued. It was the same rhythm, at the same pace. As if the visitor's goal wasn't to come inside, but simply to make that sound. Otani felt a little bit creeped out. He decided to go to the intercom camera and see who it was, but then realized that would be pointless. Only the auto-locking door on the first floor had a camera. The other doors to Otani's room on the 5th floor had an intercom, but no camera. Otani gave up. Damn it, if you want something, push the intercom button! Maybe it's drunk. No, the knocks were too steady for that, and there was no voice yelling at him to open up. He'd seen this door a million times, but suddenly it looked somehow different. Someone he didn't know was on the other side of the wall, demanding entry in the middle of the night. Somehow this made the door seem intimidating. Otani thought he might look through the peephole to see who was outside. He was then disgusted to find himself too scared to even get close to the door. Wait, the intercom didn't have a camera, but it did have a microphone. He turned toward the living room so he could use the intercom and find out what they wanted. Otani, it's me. Sorry to come by so suddenly. He stopped by when he heard that voice. It's me, I'm very sorry to bother you at this hour. Otani then tried to remember who the speaker was, but found he couldn't. But from the tone of the voice and the words, they probably weren't weird though. And when they said I'm sorry, it sounded like they really meant it. Otani sighed softly with relief, and then realized he was still carrying the knife that he had been using to cut the cheese. It suddenly felt stupid to feel so nervous. He quickly laid the knife on the top of the sink. Right, I'll open it now. Who is it? It's me, don't you remember? Why don't you say your name instead of being so cryptic about it? Well, the voice simply repeated itself. But who are you? Otani whispered to himself as he opened the door. Otani narrowed his eyebrows at the people standing there. He looked them up and down, and then looked at their faces again. Their eyes met. Who are you guys? Oh, the group of girls, don't tell me. Otani suddenly felt a piercing headache. Oh. Maybe it wasn't that. Otani closed his eyes and put his right hand up to his temple. He could feel the blood pounding in his veins through his fingers. He staggered and quickly put his hand against the wall to keep from falling over. The pain was like the old days, when he overdosed on antidepressants, but much more intense. Ugh. He gritted his teeth against the pain, and again the pain, and dug his nails into the wall that was holding him up, as he waited for the pain in his fingers to help dull the pain in his mind. Mr. Otani, are you okay? He heard a voice that he had heard times before, and felt a concerned hand on his shoulder. He somehow managed to ignore the pain and open his eyes. A worried face was peering down at him. Yeah, I'm fine. This just happens sometimes lately. I was trying to hear the voice, but okay. Overworld, perhaps? You've been so busy lately, you shouldn't push yourself too hard. You're always such a warrior. I'm fine. Come in. He opened his mouth as wide as he could and moaned, trying to ease the pain as he let his important guest inside. As he turned his back on the guest, he told himself that it had been a long time since he'd seen them, or maybe not. It couldn't have been more than 2 months since they last met. It only felt long because he wanted to see them so badly. Oh, right. It was nice to meet you. Oh, sorry. It was nice of you to come by, but I'm streaming. While he was out there, he decided he would cut some cheese for himself and his guests. Oh, don't worry about us. No, I can do it to you guys. Huh? What's wrong? No, it's nothing. The blade wasn't cutting into the cheese. This is strange, he told himself as he pushed down with more force. He cut into its surface and made an unpleasant sound he'd never heard before, but no matter how hard he pushed, it wouldn't go further. Confused, he yanked the knife back and forth like a saw, but it only cut in slightly deeper. It was as if there was something hard inside of the cheese, and even though he'd only just taken it out of the fridge, it was slightly warm. Damn, what is wrong with this thing? Irritated, he slammed the handle of the knife against the cheese. But although it was bashing a little, he couldn't cut it through. He wouldn't cut through it. God damn it! I'll help you. His guests must have heard the sound because they rushed over. They had another knife. When did they get that out? There's a trick to cutting this thing. They put the knife up against the cheese and began to move it with a practiced hand. It sounds like your work is going well. Oh my god. They smiled at Otani with their voices slightly low. Otani realized that they were trying to keep their voices from being picked up by the streaming microphone and lowered his voice as well. Yeah. He grinned and nodded. His guest had introduced him to a firm that handled advertising space for popular websites, which had been giving him his regular work. His reputation had quietly spread through the small web advertising industry, and soon he was getting more and more offers. This job is all about practicing trends, so it's perfect for me. I can't lose. Then, why do you do these streams? It's hard to say. I guess you could say I'm trying to see how far I can go. That's right. His power wasn't meant to be wasted on jobs that anyone could do. No one's done this before, so I can't ask anybody about it, you know? So I want to do everything I can about myself, or am I sounding like a show-off? No, it is wonderful, I think, and done. After he smacked it a few times, the cheese was a little funny looking, and even the slices were lined up neatly on the plate. Sorry to make you help like that. It's nothing. Come on, I'll wait until the stream is finished. Thanks. If you want something from the fridge, grab it. Oh, but be quiet. Otani took his cheese back to the seat and saw a flood of comments saying, "He's late. Did he lock up?" What should have been only 3 minutes had turned into more than 15. Otani put a bit of the cheese in his mouth and began to chew loudly. I'm so sorry, I bought his cheese on sale and it's just so incredibly hard. He apologized to the camera, remembered to keep up the act of being poor and starving. As he hoped, the comments started to come in. Otani's face took on a confused expression. The comments were strange. He thought there might be something on the camera and then turned around and saw only his fake pool room. Is something wrong? He spoke into the camera, but the comments still didn't make any sense, and they were coming faster. Maybe there was a problem with the camera. He had reached his right hand out towards it. In an instant, his head was back. It was the same pain as before. No, worse. He closed his eyes and jerked forward, banging his head against the desk. But the pain in his head was so bad that he didn't even feel it. He tried to hold his head in his hands, but for some reason his right hand wouldn't move. So instead he pushed his other hand up against his temple. It felt squishy. The vein was incredibly swollen and it felt like rubber. And each time he felt his blood pulse through it, there was an unpleasant sensation in his fingers. He stamped his feet against the floor, hoping to find some small escape from pain. But it didn't get even slightly better. It was then that he realized he was crying. He could feel the tears coming from his eyes. The pain was moving there now too. Unable to bear it, he opened his eyes. He gasped. gasped. The whole scene appeared in front of him like some kind of awful magic trick. What's going on? He suddenly heard the sound of something wet dripping into the floor. His eyes reflectively turned towards it. His right arm was gone at the elbow, and the stump was gushing blood. There was a pool of it in the floor, and the sound he heard was new blood splattering into it. Huh? Otani didn't understand what had happened to him. What's going on? He's just going to check and knock on the door. The pain screamed within him. Any sense of pain in what remained of his right arm was overcome by the pain in his head. He felt nothing from his arm at all, though he saw the blood dripping into the floor. What the hell was going on? He blinked and forced his aching eyes to function as he looked around the room. On the top of his desk, he found the rest of his arm. It was sitting on a plate. Bro, you're tripping. Well, at first it looked like it was still in one piece, but it wasn't. Oh, sorry, I thought somebody had entered into my room and I was like, oh, what? Well, it was an easy slice into uniform pieces. Each piece was about a centimeter wide, and the slices moved neatly towards his fingers. They sat upon the plate in, roughly, his arm's original shape. Miraculously, he saw there was no blood on the tip of his index finger. He still didn't understand that it was really his own arm. It wasn't really, or what? I don't know. But sheer disgust at what he saw caused him to leap out of his chair. What was this? What kind of prank was this? The contents of his stomach flooded into his mouth, and he vomited. The pink fluid splashed against the desk. He saw some solid in the middle of it. It was a thumb. It was covered in bite marks, saliva, and stomach's acid, but horribly he remembered it. What? When had he put it into his mouth? In his pain-filled mind, he suddenly heard a sound he'd never heard before. Each time he heard the sound, the pain inside got worse. He turned towards the camera, hoping for an answer to what was happening. But of course, there was none to be found. The screen was still filling with comments, but his eyes were too filled with tears to even read them. As the whole world turned red, Otani didn't even realize that his lips were turning purple. His lips had turned purple from the lack of oxygen, but he strained red with blood from his severed thumb, which had chewed himself. As he tried to fight the pain, he began to fall unconscious, and tears fell from his eyes. The tears seemed pink to him. Otani was weeping blood. He died, still facing to the camera. Wow. Oh my god, that is gruesome. His cast watched the chain of events unfold, then silently headed for the door. What the fuck? What kind of guests are they? Well, just before they left the room. Goodbye. They said as if nothing was wrong and shut the door. Oh, poor him. Oh god. That's terrible. Momone, or how do you pronounce that, Takayanagi had finished her concert, like always. She stayed behind to help put away the instruments and even helped clean up the audience seats, even though that was the concert's hall's job. Oh, sorry, I skipped that one. There wasn't much time before her solo street concert, but she still had to help anyway. She'd always been like that. Even if it wasn't her responsibility, she couldn't help but get involved. It was like in middle school, when one of her friends who wasn't good at studying asked her for test notes. Or in high school, when a girl she knew asked her to make a Valentine's chocolate for a boy she really liked. She'd stayed up so many nights. Her own test grades were worse than her friends, as she didn't have anyone to give chocolate on Valentine's Day. Oh, he's just really a nice person. In the end, it wasn't the other person's responsibility. It was the other person's responsibility, not hers, but... Oh, I didn't hear her voice well. Basically, I'm just a huge wuss. Momone Takayanagi was at heart scared of not doing everything she could, even if everything wasn't her responsibility. Yeah, I feel you, girl. The concert today was another big success. Sure, it was a tiny room that only could fit in 150 people or so, standing room only, but tickets were 3,000 yen, high from a band with an amateur vocalist like her, and they still sold out instantly. It was bizarre how excited the crowd was. She heard sobs during the ballad, and during one of the high-tempo songs, the audience had stood up all the way to the back row. This is impossible! She felt a chill and hugged herself tightly. It was not that her band wasn't popular. They started out in Nikoniya Sangit category and had kept going doing covers of popular anime songs. It helped that her face, which had earned the nickname Scarecrow in school, could look really good when she wore makeup. And if all of them put on ridiculous costumes that acted like idiots, some people would still enjoy that. Videos of their concerts and performances pulled a decent number of views online. But Takayanagi noticed. Takayanagi? Not Takayagani, okay. The vast majority of people looking at their videos were people who'd come to her concert. People who experienced that insane intensity were going back to the videos to try feel it again. And Takayanagi knew that they probably wouldn't feel even 1% of it. It is just impossible. The ticket prices and audience's size were one thing, but the strangest thing to her was their eyes. Their eyes pierced right through her, unblinking. They were like pets, totally independent of their master. The meaning of the lyrics began to take over their lives, and they never questioned it. There has to be something wrong with my voice. When she first realized that this was happening, she tried to quit the band. Even if she couldn't, she at least wanted to stop doing these live shows where people heard her directly, but the others around her wouldn't let that happen. Your voice is amazing, they would tell her. They forced her to keep singing, even as the concerts began to terrify her. Takayanagi tried to get out of it, but in the end, she kept giving in. She owned her fellow band members for getting a plain dull girl like her into music, and for a while, part of her managed to have fun. But in the end, Takayanagi, yeah, I read it right, lacked a tiny bit of courage and need to break out of the cycle. She forced herself to get up and head towards the street concert, which she didn't really want to do. She'd received an email. She read it slowly. No way! She almost dropped her smartphone. She read it again and again, trying to control her shaking hands. It was nothing special, just a simple message about one of the songs she'd made. Good song, keep it up. No way! Takayanagi tried to stop the tears, but she couldn't. The band would get too many messages like this to the account, especially after concerts. She knew it was rude, but to be honest, she was sick of them. But his email address wasn't from her band. It was just one for a site that she had anonymously uploaded original songs. In other words, whoever sent this message hadn't come to her concerts. They never heard her voice live or felt this strange power. But they still said that they liked her song. Really? Wiping away tears that wouldn't stop, she quickly wrote a response. That makes me really happy, thank you. Even after she sent it, she kept crying for a while. She hadn't cried this much since the earthquake. And then she stood up. Stupid things! She took her costumes from the day's concert out of her bag, balled them up and threw them in the trash. It was a white cape outfit, worn by some angel character in some anime. Certain fans really loved it, but she didn't really care about it at all. She took a wet towel off a nearby table and finally wiped away her makeup. I think I'm okay with being a scarecrow. She was never wearing another cape or putting makeup to look like an anime character again. Never, she said out loud. She realized that she was more than excited as she'd ever been before, and then she started to realize what she wanted to do. I guess I could just leave Shibuya. I'm sure things are going to get messy here. What would happen if she said she was going to quit the band? It would cause her trouble for a lot of. It would cause trouble for a lot of people. Definitely. Her band was scheduled to play on Restoration Festival, but even so, She never wanted to sing at another concert. I shouldn't use the streets when I've done shows, or my fans will see me. Wait, I'll be fine with this face. She laughed and kissed her smartphone. Oh wow, this is so much fun. She couldn't wait to get home and start fiddling with her music. Over the web, she could really share her music with others. As long as they weren't hearing her voice live, it would be fine. If she just played a recording from a speaker, for example... I've got a small speaker in my house, don't I? That is right. She lived in Shibuya and she had a few more songs. She could record them and play them at the street concert. That speaker was small enough so that she could fit it under her clothes to fool people. It would be rude to do the same song every time, so each time she'd re-record it at home. Oh, so like, all of these stories share a pattern. For example, like this knockings on the door. There was a knock at the door. One of the staffers, maybe. Oh, jeez, I'm coming! That didn't sound quite good. Well, she smiled and answered them. And now that she'd thrown away her clothes, her bag was lighter than she'd ever imagined it could be. That lightness made her think about the future. She was happy. But I bet that won't last very long. Coming! Takeyanagi happily danced toward the door, completely ignorant of what was to the other side. Shortly after she finished, she was walking through Shibuya. She had limped and dragged one leg behind her, if it was injured. Her bags were unnaturally long, most of her face was covered by them. She wore a dark-colored dress that seemed to melt into the night, and above it, a bright red cardigan. Her chest, arms, and legs were almost completely covered. Despite the fact that the night was still warm, she wore a glove, as if it were a sin to show any skin at all. Oh, sorry! She ran into a couple coming out of the hotel and staged her slightly. But she didn't even look at the people she ran into. She looked down and disappeared into the streets. What was that? Talk about creepy. Hey, sorry. Hey, do you see her face? Why? It was so weird. What was that? Those eyes were so weird. For example, let's say you as a kid in the middle school. How do you know what a Schrodinger's cat is? Well, we actually learned about this in middle school. Most people, I was like, alright. Most people would say yes or I've heard of it. Well, sorry. We'll start by eliminating the DQNs who say they've heard of it. What is a DQN? Next you ask, well, what is it? Next we eliminate those poor fools who would say, it's something about a cat in a box, right? There's this cat, but you don't know if it's dead or alive, right? Or maybe they say, there is a cat in a box, and next to it there's a device that may or may not give off poison gas. You don't know if the cat is alive or dead till you open the box. Everybody knows that. We can eliminate the show-offs as well. Anybody of these groups is a wrong-sider. The right answer would be to describe the experiment and then say, it was a thought experiment proposed by Schrödinger to criticize the quantum mechanical theory that a state collapse only occurs after human observation. But barely anyone could do that. And I'd imagine that I'm the only who's still in high school who knows what Schrödinger got the idea after exchanging letters with Einstein. I hate wrong-siders. I'd taken a break from investigating the Chu incident that occurred in Shibuya and was paging through some 4chan blog aggregators for a change of pace. As always, articles about bad idols and corporations with terrible work environments were getting tons of hits. It was hard to believe that the crash of 2015 was a huge new story that had just happened this month and was already up in the front pages. Did people reading and commenting on these sites realize that everything they read about corporations and idols was carefully controlled? Did they know that most of the peak aggregator sites are corporations too? Did they realize that the comments were all manipulated to go into one direction or another? Kids our age were living in a world where all the information you could ever want was at your fingertips. To those of us in the enlightened generation, ignorance was the worst sin. The ignorant was self-righteous, easily manipulated, and eager to push their paper-thin worldview onto others. They were nothing but a nuisance. The worst of the lot were the so-called otaku. I couldn't stand otaku. They were wrong-siders. I'm going to take a picture of this. It's funny. It's just funny. Take the picture of on the cover of this magazine. It was from Bloodtune. Any otaku who just watched it for the cute characters was a loser. There was no point in watching a show if you were going to ignore its deeper themes. This person reminds me of me when I was 14. I couldn't stand people who still held to the old-fashioned idea that only otaku watched anime, but people who ignored a show's theme and just watched it for the cuteness were even worse. They were ignoring the implicit social criticism hidden in it. Bro, you're cringe. Shut up. What? I started the magazine, blah blah. Specifically, I started the box that listed the next episode previews. The text said that Erin was missing. Idiots. Damn it! I lit my garden because I knew this episode was written by a guy who wrote the original manga. The original author doesn't know anything about his own work. Ah, and you do know about the work. How could you remove Erin from the story halfway through? Not keeping her around meant bringing all the internal drama that had been built up so far to a halt. God damn it. So much for my change of pace. I knew I had work to do on the case, but I put it away because I couldn't find any link between the two crimes. I thought for a moment and then took my magazine from its secret stash. Well... So, it was an issue of an older magazine called Kukak Press. People called it a dating guide for normals written by someone who'd never dated a girl in his life. But you'd be surprised. I just love how this character is such an edgelord. Magic words to make any girl fall in love with you. Stupid. I knew it was stupid. But I've never dated any girl. Isn't that what you're going to say? Oh well. But I'm really sure that the guy saying this has no idea about dating. I'm completely sure. Well, when I ran an internet search of their first phrase, nothing came back. I don't know how to read today. And then that was the thing. The fact that it didn't show up on the internet meant to me that it was worth something. He's so edgy. I know this is extraordinarily selfish of me, but may I fall in love with you? With who? What are you doing? I turned to yell at the boys. Onoe, when did you get there? I hid my favorite magazine behind my back and tried to calm my racing heart. Even if we've known each other since we were kids, don't just come in like that.
I did knock. So what's that magazine? Anything interesting?
It's nothing. I couldn't let her find out. This was bad. What is going on? Why are you wearing your school uniform? Didn't you go home? Sarika frowned.
You're the one who told me to go to investigate the crime scenes for a club today.
That's right.
Here you go. More pictures from the crime scenes.
Sarika took out a USB memory stick out of her purse. Oh, thanks. Could you transfer it to my computer for me while you're still at it? Sarika looked a little confused.
That is rare. You never let anyone touch your computer.
Not really. You're allowed. She didn't seem to think much of it as she started to copy the data off. Okay, now is my chance. The RV was cramped, but there was a lot of space for storage. I pretended to make tea as I tried to find room for the top shelf. Okay, there's just enough room for one more magazine. And then I heard a shoo-shoo sound, like a small fart from behind me. I glanced back and saw that Serika was using the mouse with one hand and fiddling her Gero Froggy Geroro strap with one other. This was my chance. The Gero Froggy Geroro strap was a soft vinyl cell foam strap I'd worn at the candy contest and when I was a kid. When you push its belly, it was supposed to go Geroro. Oh my god. Please. There started to be an incredibly rare prize that could fetch what I gave up on numbers. 100,000 Jonathan audition. But since I was a kid who didn't know any better, I gave it to Serika as a present. Serika seemed to really like it, and even since she'd carried it with her. Which, well, that was fine, but... Oh well, I'm sleepy. It was so unfaded. When you pressed its belly, air leaked out of its side and made a weird noise. It used to go Geroro Gero. It's more like Geroro, I think, but well, I think. But it just made a strange whooshing sound. Ever since she was a kid, she had an habit of fiddling with it, especially when she was nervous or focused on something. In other words, she was focused on the computer. Now it's my chance to hide it. I jammed the magazine onto the shelf and moved some things so she couldn't see it.
Mountain view.
What, a mountain view?
Nah, don't waste it. I'm leaving in a second anyway. Okay, all done.
Well, I think we're going to leave it here. I'm going to investigate how you get the menu away. Okay, apparently it's doing this. Alright. So, well, I saved it on the second one, but alright. So, we're gonna leave it here. Nothing really relevant has happened. But okay, see you in the next chapter. Goodbye.